Does your house have an attic? Hi kids, this is Auntie Mila. How are you? Did you have a good day? I did. I had to go to the doctor today. I had to sit in the waiting room, and then the nurse called me in and took my temperature, and the doctor took my blood pressure. He says, oh, it's pretty good. And then he had to listen to my heart with a stethoscope, and then he had to listen to my lungs in the back. He said, take a deep breath. And he was listening. And he checked me all out. And you know what? I have good news. He said, you're healthy. And I said, oh, yes. I was so happy to be healthy. And then as I was driving home, I thought, my body's healthy. Is my mind healthy? Is my soul healthy with God? And I thought, I want to be sure my soul is healthy. And so I just prayed in my heart. I said, Lord, please take away all my sins. Help my heart to be pure and clean. And you know what? God answered my prayer. He took all my sins away, washed them, and threw them away. And you can do that too. Well, our verse tonight is in Psalm 119, verse 50. It says, your promise revives me. It comforts me in all my troubles. God's promises. I'll give you a secret. I find most of his promises in the book of Psalms. Psalms is in the middle of the Bible. Do you see this? There's half on this side and half on this side, right in the middle. God has put his precious promises right there for us. I love the Psalms. Our story tonight is called Attic Hideout. The Bradleys had just moved to town, and they were looking for a house to buy. And they found a house just outside of town a little bit. It was an older house, but it was big enough for their 5 kids. They had 2 boys and 3 girls. 5 kids. The 2 boys were Glenn and Danny, and they were best friends. They just did everything together. Danny was the older brother, and Glenn was the younger brother. And Glenn would follow Danny. Whatever he did, he was right there. One day, when Mom was at work and Dad was at work, it was after school, and Danny was standing in the kitchen, and he looked up and said, well, look there. Right up there, there is a trap door. I know that's a trap door. It looks like one. I wonder where it goes. Maybe to a secret attic. And he thought, how could I get up there? He was looking and looking. Now, oh, I want to go up there. I want to know what's up there. And he was looking and looking. Thought, oh, Mom has a step ladder. I could use that in a chair. And then there's a buffet right here. And so he started climbing up. He climbed up, and he was able to reach way up. And sure enough, it was a trap door. It was just a piece of wood, and he could knock it up very easily. And so he pushed it up, and he hung on, and he climbed up. He was a good climber, like a monkey. And he climbed up and got in there. Wow, this is an attic. He said, oh my, look at all the stuff. And he called down to his Glenn, Glenn, come up here, look what I found. And Glenn came running. Glenn looked at him and said, how did you get up there? He said, oh, it's easy. Come on up. He said, I don't know if I can. And Danny said, oh, yes, right over here. Climb on the footstool and then the chair and the buffet and come on, I'll help you. Glenn said, oh, okay, good idea. And he went over, he was climbing up on all the furniture, and then Danny reached down and helped him and pulled him up. And he got up, he says, wow, what's up here? And you know, I'm sure it was really dusty. And when I think of an old attic that no one's been in, I want to start coughing and sneezing because I'm sure it was really dusty. A thick layer of dust everywhere. But the boys could care less about the dust. They went and said, hey, look, there's a little window. They went to one end. There was a tiny little window. They looked out. They felt like they were in the clouds. They looked down, they could see the farm, they could see the road that goes by their farm. And they said, wow, this is really cool. And they looked around. Oh, there's another window at that end. They ran to that window. Oh, look, there's the backyard. Oh, there's our sisters. And they thought this attic was just amazing. And then they looked, look, here's an old radio. I wonder if it works. And they were exploring. And Danny said, this is going to be our secret hideout. We're not going to tell anyone. We're just going to come up here. And if Mom tells us to throw something away that we don't want, we'll just bring it up here and store it up here. Danny thought this was fantastic. And Glenn thought it was fantastic too. Well, they played and played and played. And then they heard Dad's car driving. Oh, we better get down. So we went over the opening, and there were 2 cords that went right across the opening. And Danny grabbed the cords, and he swung down like an ape, and then dropped and landed in the kitchen. He says, Glenn, just do that. Grab those cords and hang, and then just drop. So Glenn went and grabbed the cords, swung and hung, and dropped in the kitchen. And they were back in the kitchen. They were so excited. Well, the weeks went on, and every once in a while, the 2 boys would go up in the attic and play, and then hang on to the 2. It was like ropes, but they weren't ropes. They were wires, thick wires going across it. Hang on to those, swing, and drop down. Well, Mom and Dad found that they were playing in the attic. And Mom said,
Boys, I really wish you wouldn't play in the attic. It makes me really nervous.
afraid you're going to fall out of the attic or get hurt. And besides, there are a lot of electrical cords up there because the attic was unfinished. It was not a finished room with walls. It just had studs and it just wasn't finished. And so they had wires going everywhere. And the boys got a frown and they thought, but that's our secret hideout. And then Dad saw them coming down once and he says, boys, I don't want you to play in the attic because there are electrical wires, you can get hurt. I really don't want you to play in the attic. The boys didn't say anything. But when Daddy was off to work and Mom was off to work, the boys would climb up there and they had so much fun up there. So they didn't know why they shouldn't play in the attic. They found a big chest and they opened it, and old clothes in there, hats in there. All kinds of things. They liked the attic. One day they were playing up there, and they thought, well, we better get down. It's almost time for supper. We better get cleaned up. Because when they'd come out of the attic, they were really dirty. Dirt on their face, dirt on their hands. Said, we better get cleaned up. And Danny said, besides, I have a lot of homework to do tonight. I better start on it. And so Danny went and hung on the cords and dropped down. And little Glenn grabbed the cords, and all of a sudden he screamed. There was electrical cords, and electricity was going through him. And he screamed, and the sisters jumped up and started screaming too. They didn't know what was happening. And I have to tell you that Danny went and grabbed his brother and jerked him down. They both fell on a heap in the middle of the kitchen. And Danny got up, and it looked like Glenn was dead. He was white. He wasn't talking. He was unconscious. And he wasn't dead, but he didn't know anything. And they lay there and said, oh no. And Susie, the big sister, ran to the phone and dialed Dr. Thompson's office, because you see, Mom was a nurse and worked at Dr. Thompson's office. And Mom picked up the phone. Mom, she says, Glenn was electrocuted. I think he's dead. And Mom didn't even say goodbye. Susie didn't even say goodbye. They hung up the phone, and in about 5 minutes, here came a car racing into the driveway with Dr. Thompson and Mother. They came running in, and there was Glenn lying on the floor, white as can be, just not saying a thing, hardly breathing. The doctor checked his pulse. The doctor checked him all over, and he said, well, I think he'll be okay. And they carried him to the couch in the living room, and they let him lie there. And after quite a while, the color started coming back into his face. And then he opened his eyes. And he said, "Oh!" And his little sister Lori went over and said, "Glenn, you're not dead? Oh, I'm so glad you're alive." And he lay there and he said, "What happened?" And then they told him what happened. And Mother was there. By this time, Father was home. And they were very upset. But you know what? They didn't have to punish Glenn because he punished himself. He punished himself. And after he was awake and doing good, they helped him to bed and he had a good sleep. In the morning, he was fine. And Glenn and Danny decided, I think that we should obey Mom and Dad, and I don't think we should play in the attic ever again. And they didn't. I want to pray. Dearest Father in heaven, thank you so much for your love to us. And Lord, thank you that you can forgive us, Lord, when we do wrong things. Make our hearts pure and clean. Thank you that Glenn didn't die, Lord, from the electric wires. You're so merciful. We love you with all of our hearts. For Jesus' sake, amen. Here is a little prayer that I really like. It says, "Dear God, be good to me. The sea is so wide and my boat is so small. Amen." Bye.
Bye, Auntie, my love.